You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
As someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself.
The wealthy, well-connected sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, was found dead in a New York jail cell where he was awaiting trial on fresh allegations. Now, the coroner ruled his death a suicide, but there were so many irregularities surrounding his death that conspiracy theories abound. A well-known forensic pathologist hired by Epstein's brother said he thinks the evidence points to homicide rather than suicide. It's an intriguing story, so let's explore it further now with our special guest, Dr. Cyril Wecht, a forensic pathologist with many decades of experience. Dr. Wecht, thank you very much for appearing on Nexus Extra. Let me ask you your opinion of Jeffrey Epstein's death. Was it suicide or murder?
I have reviewed the autopsy report that was sent to me by Mr. Epstein's brother. I had discussed this case extensively previously over the past weeks, beginning following his death on August 10th. And I have reviewed this on many programs here in the United States. And I have had discussions with my longtime colleague, Dr. Michael Baden. Very briefly, I will start by saying I fully concur with Dr. Michael Baden. I believe that this is most probably a ligature strangulation and not a suicide. That is based upon the anatomic findings as a forensic pathologist. What was revealed when they did the autopsy on Sunday, August 10th, correlated with all of the background information that is so ridiculous as to make anybody with a modicum of objectivity find it truly incredulous.
And now, Dr. Wecht, for the layman, when you look at the evidence that was presented to you, in fact, maybe you could just describe what evidence was presented to you, what is it that makes you feel it was more likely to be a homicide?
3 fractures were found on Mr. Epstein. A fracture of the hyoid bone, that is a very slender U-shaped bone high up in the neck beneath the mandible, the jawbone, the base of which is pointed anteriorly. That was fractured, and then the thyroid cartilage, the Adam's apple directly beneath, had 2 fractures, one on the right side, one on the left side. In all my years of experience, and I've done many thousands of suicides, I have never seen a case in which there were 3 fractures from such a lean-in kind of a suicide. And Mr. Epstein was found in a quasi-kneeling position. He had not jumped from a height. There was no force involved. In other words, just leaning forward. This is somewhat similar to what Robin Williams did some years ago, tying something to a doorknob and leaning forward. So, you know, the basic formula from our physics days in high school tell us that energy, force equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. Mass is the head, and the velocity is a 0, less than 1 mile an hour as you lean forward. You do not get 3 fractures like that in that kind of a scenario.
To be clear, the injuries that he sustained are not actually consistent with the way he was found to have apparently committed suicide.
That is correct. I want to point out something else, seemingly of a minor nature, possibly unrelated, but interesting to note. There was a bruise with a little hemorrhage in the left shoulder area, and there were some bruises and abrasions, contusions, abrasions on the left forearm and the hand. You certainly don't get those in a kind of a leaning into suicide.
Well, presumably
they would be consistent with what we call defensive wounds, trying to ward off an assailant. I can't say that they are, but I just want to point it out that they are present and they do not fit in with a suicide scenario.
And when you look at the damage to his body, if you were describing what you think was most likely to have happened to him leading up to his death, what would you describe? What scenario?
Well, the scenario I have in my mind, and as Dr. Baden has set forth, is that it's a ligature strangulation. I think it's highly relevant, if you would like me to point out the background information very quickly, because people who are interested in this case should be aware of those circumstances. Can I list those for you?
Please do.
All right. First of all, you know the crimes that he had already been convicted of some years before and the crimes with which he was charged at this time. You do not put a prisoner like that into a cell with a cellmate. They put him into a cell with a guy well over 200 pounds, muscular, former cop who was charged with 4 murders. That is a big no-no. Then on July 23rd, there was an incident in which I understand from Dr. Baden, the cellmate accosted Epstein and he was removed. And Epstein was placed in another cell with another cellmate and put on suicide watch. Fine. Then inexplicably, the suicide watch was withdrawn a week later. Then we find that the new cellmate is removed from Epstein's cell one day before Epstein is found dead. Then on the day that Epstein's death occurred, guess what? The cameras in the cell and outside the cell were not working. And the 2 guards who were assigned to watch and observe him were overtired, overworked, and they fell asleep.
What would you like to see? What would you like to see happen now, Dr. Wecht? Would you like to see another actual examination of the body?
No, that's not necessary. An examination of the body is not necessary. I'm not criticizing or questioning the results of the autopsy. I would point out that that medical examiner who did the autopsy at the New York City Medical Examiner's Office on Sunday, August 10th, signed the manner of death out as pending. It was the next day that Dr. Barbara Sampson, who was the chief medical examiner, who had not seen the body, who had not attended the autopsy, evidently began to think differently, and 3 or 4 days later, she ruled this to be a suicide. She had not received any investigative reports from the U.S. Attorney General, from the FBI, from the Federal Prison Board, or from anybody else that would have provided a basis for her to make that quantum leap from pending to suicide. So what I would like to see done is a full investigation. I would like to see the reports from all of those governmental, federal, state, local agencies, and an objective review of this case. That's what I would like to see done.
And a final question for you, Dr. Wecht. Some people will say, well, Dr. Baden, your good friend, who suggests that it is more likely to be a homicide, was employed by Jeffrey Epstein's brother, and that might affect his judgment. I'm sure you would ardently defend him against such a charge.
Yes, I've been hearing that for more than 50 years of my professional career. It's okay when you go in to testify for the prosecution and you're paid by the government, that's okay. The moment that you testify as defendant, you become a medical whore, a prostitute. Then you're easily bought. Well, you're not bought. Dr. Baden's been doing this for 50 years. I've been doing this for 55, 56 years. You are not bought because you testify for the defense. In a democracy like England and the United States of America, defendants have a right to have their own experts. That doesn't mean that the experts are bought for a few $1,000s.
Dr. Wecht, thank you so much for giving us the benefit of your many decades of experience, and thank you for watching Nexus Extra.